Gentlemen, start your engine! And one by one, these power plants...
And the engines are fired and ready to go as up and down in front of the state capitol in Denver, Colorado, and before a sellout crowd of over 55,000 people. The Indy cars begin to roar. The call goes out to the crews and drivers for the very first time through the streets and off the walls of the buildings of downtown Denver. This city is alive with excitement. It's a most historic moment. The Indy cars are now ready to run. We're in the majestic Rocky Mountains of Colorado, overlooking downtown Denver, a combination of historic buildings and great beauty, both in the faces of the people and their city. An old-time western town, gone metropolitan. A rustic quaintness combined with modern ingenuity. And today it's a setting for the Indy cars and a run through the streets. The first time the Indy cars have been in the state since 1970. And their first time ever on these downtown streets. All the glamour and the excitement of IndyCar racing comes to Denver. Horsepower and speed take over the streets for a day as the Indy cars go racing in the inaugural Grand Prix of Denver. Al Unser Jr. comes here with a large lead in the PPG points race. Wily veteran Rick Mears' consistency has kept him in the hunt. And Michael Andretti is right there battling as well as the Indy cars head for the streets. It's a bright sun that shines down on Denver, Colorado. Temperatures climbing into the 90s for the Texaco HAVOLINE Denver Grand Prix. Hello and welcome. I'm Paul Page. We've got a marvelous points fight underway in the Indy cars right now. Al Unser Jr. is out in front, and he has a little bit of breathing room. No one can surpass him in the contest here today. Michael Andretti is right now second in the points, and of those 104 points that he has, 72 have been earned on temporary circuits this year, so he's definitely a man to watch. Rick Mears is third. Now, only twice before have the kart Indy cars raced at an elevation of a mile or higher at Mexico City, and both times Rick Mears won the race. Bobby Unser, what does the elevation mean here at Denver?
Well, Paul, I think whole key to this race is going to be hot brakes, overheating engines, and tired race drivers. Because Denver is 5,000 feet in elevation, the air is real thin, causes lots of heating problems.
All right, the closing stages of the season. Now, Sam Posey, different crews have different objectives.
Well, the championship contenders are going to have to tread very carefully in a race many expect will see a number of crashes, whereas Teo Fabi and the others who have no chance in the championship, they're prepared to let her rip.
Well, the car's already rolling on the pace lap. We take a look at the starting field. Teo Fabi, the 9th pole of his career. Al Unser Jr., most of his 13 wins have come on street circuits. It's the Andretti family that makes up the second row. Back in row number 3, Emerson Fittipaldi, Danny Sullivan. The 4th row, Rick Mears, John Andretti. In the 5th row, it's Eddie Cheever and Arie Luyendyk, the Indy champion. Then Roberto Guerrero with Alpha Power in the 6th row alongside Raul Boesel. In the 7th row, Canadian Scott Goodyear and Bobby Rahal. The 8th row, Jan Beekhuis and Dominic Dobson. Back in the 9th row, Willie T. Ribbs and Didier Tays. The 10th row, Scott Brayton and Jeff Wood. The 11th row, Wally Dallenbach Jr. here making a start in his home state, and Michael Greenfield. Mike Groff and the great A.J. Foyt make up the 12th row. The 13th row, Hiro Matsushita and Dean Hall. The 14th row, Randy Lewis and Tony Bettenhausen. Take a look over the shoulder of Al Unser Jr. And we take a look at what this circuit here in downtown Denver looks like.
Well, it's a very beautiful circuit, but remember, look at that, 16 turns in only 2 miles, a little less than 2 miles. This is the crookedest, busiest circuit on the entire championship circuit.
1.909 miles, the measured distance. The key, as Bobby Unser has already suggested, with the temperature at 89 degrees right now and climbing and the humidity down, will be, will the engines last, will the brakes last, especially considering the air here is about 15% down in density from sea level.
And also, Paul, look at running in a tunnel. You don't get much breeze coming down through there. That makes it a little bit hotter. Every time a car goes through, the air gets a little hotter.
There's the lineup of chassis ready to run today as the field now carefully working its way past the pits. The pits are physically separated from the straight that holds the start-finish line. There's the lineup of engines racing here today. Now just one turn lies ahead of the cars, and they should be seeing a green flag. They'll come off the last turn slowly if they can to allow everybody to get on the stretch. Nick Finaro gives the green flag, and Teo Fabi jumps into the lead, chased by Al Unser Jr. as the Andretti family battles it out for third. Off the longest straight, the look back at Danny Sullivan. Fabi's still out in front as everybody strings through. Some apprehension in these first laps. Look at Leyendijk as he tries an outside maneuver, because as they are running through, of course, these are the first racing laps for the Indy cars on a tight and twisting and very narrow circuit.
Teo Fabi knows that this team that he's driving for now will probably be dissolving at the end of the year, and thus his future too is uncertain. He's 35 years old. He's talked of retirement. Today means a lot to him.
Teo Fabi, the pole sitter, chased by Al Unser Jr.
Everybody should watch, Paul, how the track goes from being narrow to wide back to being narrow. This has an awful lot to do where the passing goes. That, for example, is a good turn to pass. One coming up, one coming close to the pits. That's a good place to pass.
Michael Andretti lies in third. There comes Mario, then Danny Sullivan, and then Eddie Cheever, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi and Rick Mears and John Andretti.
You see the crowd sold out. Many spectators have never seen a race before here anywhere.
The first lap of racing through the streets of Denver, Colorado, about to go into the record book as Fabi makes a turn onto the long stretch in front of the state capitol.
Now this is one track. You saw how little Al got really close to Teo Fabi there. This is one track where your radiators are going to get hot. We already have heating problems here, so if he runs too close, Paul, there's no wind going to be able to come in and cool the cars down.
You ride on board with second place, Al Unser Jr.
And you see the chances that Fabi...
There's Raul Boesel. Something wrong with his power plant as he rolls into the pits.
That's a Judd engine.
One of the few teams using that kind of power here in the Indy cars. They have a whole new project underway of an all-American constructed chassis and engine. Little puff of smoke there at the back of little Al's car, but he was showing that during the practice yesterday too.
Yes, all that is, Paul, is a turbocharger seal, and that doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that the turbocharger, which runs about 1800 degrees in temperature, gets a little bit of a leak there, just a minor one, and immediately burns the oil.
Formula One veteran Eddie Cheever jumped from 9th to 6th place on the starting lap. You see him come up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen.
You watch
Battle
Mario
here for third place, third, fourth, and fifth, all right together.
We always seem to have Mario and Michael right together, with Michael leading there right now, but as we watch them, Paul, even their places they run on the tracks, their grooves are almost identical.
Two good fights. Mario had to stab the brakes hard, and it looked like there was a little contact there. Danny Sullivan pulled right up into the fight as well. As they come around to the completion of lap number 2, you ride on board with Mario. Good fight for third place, not a bad fight for the lead.
Mario is faster right now than his son Michael. You can see it. He's trying to press it. He's trying to say, let me by. I can carry the fight forward if you'll let me by.
I don't know if it was a let, but Mario moves past, picks up the position. Michael drops back. Part of the philosophy, though, Bobby Unser, will be the tactic that Michael has proven so strong at this season of pacing your own race and not overusing the car.
That's right, but there is another part to that story. Right now, the tires are fresh. The track is fairly clean, not much rubber on it. It's hard to pass at some place on this track, so Mario's opting to try it really hard right now, and that's how he got Michael.
Looking backwards from Mario Andretti's car.
Yes, Bobby, these opening laps are so important because as the race wears on, this is going to become a one-groove track. Debris on the course and gravel and just the tire, little stuff coming off the tires is going to make it very narrow, a very narrow groove toward the end. We're going to see some accidents in the last 10 laps.
The number 7 car of Danny Sullivan up to challenge Michael Andretti for all practical purposes. Danny in front of the hometown crowd. He makes his home in Aspen, Colorado, and he's hoping for a strong result here today as he challenges Michael Andretti. And there you can see Eddie Cheever in that number 15 car pulling right in behind and joining that fight as well. Then Emerson Fittipaldi lies back about 50 yards.
This is the turn coming off right into where the pits are. And this gets where it's really rough. Right around to the right, You watch the patches in the road there, it gets very slippery. Around the left, then a little short straightaway. Watch later on. This is a good place to pass.
Then you come on the longest, the fastest section of this course as Sullivan continues to come up and challenge Michael Andretti. The fight, of course, is for 4th place. Sullivan's right in. You could pass under braking here. Eddie Cheever closing in as well, so a good little fight developing here.
Now, Michael knows he's being pressed really hard right now, so you can watch Michael run a little bit offline. That's a defensive move instead of an aggressive move. Right now, his car's not working as good as it's been every day.
Cheever, who is the 3rd of this group right here, has had his strongest performances on tracks just like this. Twice in his Formula 1 career, he was 2nd on street courses, and this year he's had 2 third places on street courses. So look for Cheever right there, 3rd car in this group to move up.
Well, the fight for 4th place between Michael and Danny Sullivan has, in fact, allowed both Cheever, and now you see Fittipaldi coming off the corner as they seem to be closing down, but it's Danny Sullivan that is pressing Michael.
Well, you see Michael let his dad by, but he's not going to let Danny Sullivan by. Big difference.
You know, Sam, I don't believe they really let each other by. There's a lot of competition between father and son, even though they get along really good on the same team. I think Mario has been embarrassed with Michael outrunning him sometimes this year.
You saw it there. You should see it plenty. A puff of smoke off of the tires as Danny Sullivan came down on the brakes hard. But Bobby Unser conserving the brakes is going to be of paramount interest here today.
It really will. In fact, as we walked through the pits this morning, we saw the different concepts about how they're going to cool the brakes. Some of them had really big brake scoops. Some of them had about what we call medium-sized brake scoops. Now, these 2 cars right there, Mario Andretti and Danny Sullivan, they had big scoops. Those guys have been doing this a long time.
Early on, you saw Raul Boesel fall by the wayside in that Judd-powered True Sports machine. Right now, he is with Jackaroo.
And Paul, he's very disappointed. He had hoped to run all afternoon here at Denver. What put you out, Raul?
Well, after 2 corners already, the car started to misfire after the start, and you start to see a lot of smoke from the back, and our day was done.
They talk about running on a street course and how tough it can be on your hands. He was set for tough going today. He can take that tape off now. It's virtually unused.
In the meantime, back at the front of the field, it's a 3-way battle for the lead. Teo Fabi, the Porsche-powered machine, has it. The Valvoline car, that is Al Unser Jr. just behind, and now Mario Andretti has come up to do battle.
Watch how close Fabi comes to these walls as we watch from Al Unser Jr.'s car. Fabi is really pushing. I think he's at some risk. He's pushing so hard right now.
So 4 laps are now complete in the inaugural Denver Grand Prix. Teo Fabi has led right from the green flag, but there's a good battle at the front. We'll be back. We're back at the Texaco HAVOLINE Grand Prix, riding now on board with the now 2nd place Mario Andretti as he chases the car just ahead that belongs to Teo Fabi, the Porsche-powered machine. Now, the last time that Teo Fabi led the opening laps of an event, he went on to win at Mid-Ohio last year. Could that prophecy take place here today? A very long, very difficult day lies ahead. As you see, Mario is right there and challenging Fabi at every corner.
I talked to Mario last night after practice. He said that getting the car to handle just right is very, very hard here. He was having problems with traction. He was discouraged. He said it's a crapshoot, but I know I can find that handling that I need in my car because little Al, who has a similar car, found it in his. Obviously, overnight, Mario guessed right.
And Al Unser Jr. runs in 3rd now, giving up the 2nd place. He's back just a bit. Now here comes Mario. He tries down the inside as he tries to maneuver under braking, doesn't get it done, but Mario definitely wants to lead this race as they come on to the curve that has a semicircle really around the pits, and it was at this point that they just passed in the earlier laps of the race that 2 of the cars actually got together. It's an onboard look, Bobby. It's Mario and Michael. You're looking for Mario's car.
Now look how close they get right there.
Whoa, close is more than what they got.
It may not have been a contact, but if it wasn't, it was so close it might as well be.
Oh, look at the brakes line up and he comes off the course. The brakes fail for Teo Fabi and he goes into the tire barrier.
Now what happened there is he locked his front brakes, Paul. He had no way. You have to have, as deep as they drive in these turns, you have to have all 4 wheels working equal. Now something happened to Fabi's rear brakes. He only had front ones. Means he has no steering and no way to stop.
So Teo Fabi into the barrier. We'll keep an eye on him. It looked like he would be okay. A corner worker immediately there to make sure that he was.
Now remember, this is one thing we said coming into this race, the brakes. That's going to be the #1 problem. Second #2 problem is going to be overheating engines.
So the yellow flag comes out here in Denver. The crews are right there with Teo. And he's obviously talking to them, so it's assumed that he's okay.
He went into a tire barrier, which is certainly the nicest of all the barriers.
Let's go to Jackaroo.
Well, Teo Fabi's entire crew, the only indication they've got of the condition of their driver is by watching a small television monitor. Due to the extensive sellout here, they've lifted the blackout for ABC Sports coverage today, and they are watching the replay as Teo Fabi went down into turn number 1, locking the brakes up. Let's see if we can get a word with Derek Walker, who calls the shots. Derek, your first look at this crash, your impressions?
Well, I don't know. It's difficult to say. It looks like a little bit of a braking problem. We don't know. It's difficult to say, really.
Have you talked to Teo on the radio?
No, not yet.
Well, as we said, their only indication of what's going on down in turn number 1 is by our coverage in turn number 1 on ABC.
So the yellow comes out at the start-finish line. We'll take a look at this situation. Bobby Unser from the view that Mario Andretti had running in second place.
You can just watch the front tire just light up. He hits the brakes, he lets off a little bit. He made an attempt to turn right here where Mario is. He made an attempt to turn there, but without traction, he has to stop. He can't turn.
And don't think for a split second Mario isn't thinking to himself, gotcha, because he applied the pressure relentlessly. He forced Teo to brake later than Teo wanted to. And boy, that's the nicest way to take the lead.
You can just see the amount of safety that there is here at Denver. He slowed down by going through one tire barrier, then went into another one. And I might just point out again, that's a lot better than hitting a concrete wall at that speed.
So Mario Andretti has the lead here. He has led in 5 of the 7 IndyCar road races this year. Now let's take a look at that replay again. Take a look at the rears, though, Bobby. It looks as if the rears are trying to grip.
Well, they are, but remember what we said, Paul. You have to have 50% braking on each end. The fronts are locking up and the smoke is just going around the rears. Watch the top of the front tires and you can just see the smoke curling around. The rears are literally almost doing nothing.
Teo takes a pretty good hit to the head there from that tire wall.
Well, there's Teo Fabi, so apparently he's okay, which is good news for all of us and for the fans of Teo Fabi around the world, especially the fans of this effort.
Denver is the 9th temporary course to debut in kart's 12 years, and in previous 8 of those 9 courses, Mario has 3 wins and 2 seconds and 1/3. A statistic his man Mike Knight came up with, and it suggests that Mario, in terms of history, is a heavy favorite here and right now.
So in Denver, on the streets, Al Unser Jr. now assumed second place, but is being pressured by Danny Sullivan, who begins to move up through this field now. We saw him in a battle earlier. Mario Andretti out in front, running smoothly, then Little Al, then Danny Sullivan, then Michael Andretti, then Eddie Cheever with a superlative run today, being chased by Fittipaldi, then Ray Hall, then the only hope of the Porsche left, John Andretti.
One of the things we're going to expect to see today, Paul, is cars like Little Al was running behind really close a little while ago to this car, Teo Fabi, backing off a little bit. Remember the cooling. We've got to keep in mind cooling to the radiators.
So Teo Fabi stands with the race physician Terry Trammell and Steve Albee while the flags fly yellow around the course. We have a full course yellow. Mario Andretti uses the opportunity to head down into the pit area. His pit is well down, one of the last pits there is. Danny Sullivan comes in as well. So most of the cars decide that this on lap 9 is a good opportunity to stop for service. Michael Andretti being waved in by the crew just ahead. So the leader of the race, Mario Andretti, comes in, makes a stop. Danny Sullivan lights the tires coming out. These pits are incredibly narrow, and they really must tiptoe as they come out of the pits. Not only are they narrow, but they're semicircular.
First use of these semicircular pits. Interesting to see how it works out.
A bit unusual for the Indy cars because the pits and the start-finish line are separated. The crews can't actually see the finish line. The race continues, but under yellow. We'll be back with more. We're back on the streets of downtown Denver, Colorado, as the Indy cars run under the caution. You're on board taking a look at Al Unser Jr., who, with the pit stops made under the caution at the 9th lap, assumed the lead of the race, followed by Bobby Ray Hall, Arie Luyendyk, and then Scott Goodyear. Al Unser Jr. from time to time has been struggling with an earphone underneath his helmet, using his caution period to try to get it plugged back in.
And one of the main problems right there, Paul, is going to be that if you don't be able to hear on the radios, if you can't hear, they can't see the pit boards too well because they're in the middle of a turn when they go by the pits.
Let's go to the pits and Gary Gerald.
Well, Bobby was talking about the importance of brakes and what a factor it's going to be in this race. Everybody concerned about it. It may have contributed to the Fabi incident. We've got a backup car here from Simon Racing. This is a normal-sized air intake brake scoop on the front left. This is the biggest that they have. They have at least this much ducting to direct air into the tires on all of these cars. Many of the drivers, however, have gone even beyond that. All of the Penske cars have doubled up. Not only the biggest duct that you'd normally see back here, they've added another duct on the inside. One goes to the caliper, one to the brake itself. We have seen brake temperatures in practice and qualifying of in excess of 600 degrees Celsius. That's 13 to 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. If you don't have brakes, you can't attack the course. And everybody knows it's going to be a struggle all day long to keep the brakes cool because there are no high-speed portions to this course. They're trying to get all the air to the brakes they possibly can. We've already seen on pit road Dominic Dobson's crew changing brake pads in the first 10 laps of this race. Paul?
Well, thank you, Gary. And as we mentioned at starting, there is no question about it that the brakes are going to be a factor. No double turn is the sign. Teo Fabi straight off the track at that point. So here in Denver, it is Al Unser Jr. in front, followed by Ray Hall, Lion Dyke, and Scott Goodyear. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. We're back in Denver, still under a full course caution caused when the pole sitter Teo Fabi slid off the course while leading the race and caught the tire barrier. There's more racing action coming up next. The final round in the International Race of Champions to determine the overall champion of the series. Quite a run. That's coming up right after coverage here live from Denver. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Paul, throughout the early going of this race, we've noticed some puffs of white smoke coming from Al Unser Jr.'s car. Well, we checked in with Rick Gallis, the man that calls the shots down there in Al Jr.'s car. He says they feel they may have filled the tanks, the oil tanks, just a little bit too full, and it's going into the overflow. And with the oppressive heat here, it's actually tending to vaporize a bit, showing that white smoke. One thing that all the crews are extremely concerned about after that first stop is trying to get the radiators cool. The steam is just emanating from them when they come to a stop here. So we'll keep you abreast of that throughout the day as well.
Well, as you can see from the perspiration right there, temperature is increasing. There's Big Al. Remember, he broke his upper right leg in a practice accident before the Michigan 500, and he is now right behind Little Al's pit, keeping track of the progress of his son. Now, Mario Andretti took the lead when Teo Fabi went into the barrier, dropped back to 5th. You ride with him now. We asked him before the race, can you, in fact, enforce other drivers to use up their car?
Well, yeah, I suppose you can by keeping pressure on, but it's a fine line, isn't it? You know, by keeping pressure on, obviously you have to go into the corners hard because that's the only place you're going to pass. But the guy up front just doesn't know what problems you may have, so you'll always perhaps try to go deeper to be safe, and maybe that's what's going to happen. It's going to be quite a bit of a strategy there.
I'll tell you, Mario Andretti may be 50 years old this year, but he has the raw enthusiasm of a rookie.
Well, he under the caution. We've had 4 laps of caution. Al Unser Jr. has the lead, followed by Ray Hall as we take a look down through the order. Bobby stopping, making your pit stop, lap 9, lap 10. What about that as a strategy?
Well, it might be that Rick Gallis has used a good strategy for Al Jr. Little Al is going to be a lot lighter on fuel. He's in the front in the serial scoring right now, leading the race. And it's going to be easier on his brakes and his tires right now. And they're still going to have to make a 2-stop race. So I think right now Rick Gallis's theory looks the best.
Well, the caution period a bit long. Have to get Teo Fabi's car off of the circuit. But every time you start with a new temporary circuit, there is a certain learning factor, a break in time. Look at the crowd as they're all over the tops of the buildings here in downtown Denver. They've really done a marvelous job getting this track ready.
This track,
as the green comes out, they come off the last turn. There's Nick Finaro with the green, and Michael Andretti comes up to challenge Little Al. Or excuse me, Bobby Rahal. I'm thinking 2 years back, Bobby Rahal, who was running in second, comes back and challenges his teammate, Shades of the Michigan 500.
That's right, Paul. Shades of Michigan 500. Little Al and Ray Hall going at it tooth and toenail.
remember, Ray Hall has not won a race this year. The man who won the second most races through the decade of the 80s has 5 5 second places. A galling situation which he finds himself.
Now, another thing that may be a good decision that Rick Gallus did in reference to Little Al is he's running out in front cooler air. Ray Hall, for example, in the back. Just imagine all the heat coming out of Little Al's engine is going into Ray Hall's radiator. Now, that's one of the reasons why they get as hot as we heard from Jack Arute.
So it's Ray Hall chasing his teammate Little Al. Ari Lyondike is third. Scott Goodyear sitting back in fourth. Teo Fabi is now with Jack Arute.
And he's not at all happy having to watch the rest of this race from the sidelines. Teo, what happened?
Well, I'm quite happy to be in one pieces. The brake pedal went down to the floor, and by the time I was able to pump it up, it was way too late to make the corner.
Hitting the tire restraining area the way you did, you got hit in the head pretty good.
Well, sure, the tire helped a lot, but it was quite a big impact.
Good news, but also could be bad news, Paul Page. We've got our first documented brake failure of the afternoon.
And that certainly is something that all the teams are going to be keeping track of. And I'm sure as Teo makes his walk down the pits, by the side of the course, that's Willie T. Ribbs in the Rayner car.
Now, one of the things that might have been happening to Teo Fabi's brakes is what happened to Scott Pruitt in a test. That's a little bleed valves in the back just pop right out, Paul.
This is Willie's 5th race of the year. His best finish so far, 20th. He has not had a good rookie season.
So Willie T. Ribbs gesturing to the course marshals here that he'd like to get hooked up and towed in. Whatever the problem is, I'm sure that he feels that it's fixable.
There are not very many places that a race car that quits can get off the racetrack on a street course. Willie got to the safest place he could get, but what he's really hoping for is a tow in.
There's Scott Goodyear, the young Canadian in the McKenzie cars, having a terrific year in the Indy cars. Really has been driving well on all forms of the circuit. You look back, there's Mario in pursuit. Andretti trying to close on Ari Lyondike. That is Dominic Dobson. Lyondike just maneuvered around. Now Mario comes around Dominic. And Mario closes in, trying to forge his way back up to the front of this race once again. And a view of Scott Goodyear, an 11 machine. Great year for this young man.
Many people have said that Eddie Cheever will win the Rookie of the Year, but really he has experience. He's an older man. Scott Goodyear, of the real charging young rookies, gets my nod. He's had a terrific season.
Now there's you coming off of turn 16, going down the front straightaway, which is the longest and the fastest. The difference on how fast you get off that turn makes the difference whether you can pass going into this one, which is turn 1, Paul.
Still at the front of the field, it is Al Unser Jr. being chased by his teammate. Scott Goodyear trying to overhaul Dominic Dobson. Looks to both sides, tries to get inside the corner, but Dominic sweeps across the front.
You have to show the other man that you're there without allowing him to cut you off and break your rhythm and your speed. Usually once a lap is enough of that. Scott might be starting to show a little impatience here.
And it's very difficult on this track, as Sam was saying, because you not only have to look in your mirror to see who's there, but you have to look where you're going at the crookedest track on the circuit.
Well, Goodyear has got Roberto Guerrero right behind him, so he not only has to think about trying to pass Dobson, but also he has to look at Guerrero behind him.
Here's Ari Lyondike with Mario Andretti right behind him. The battle here is for third place. Watching Mario try to get to the inside. He is really challenging. They come on to the pit curve. It truly is a semicircular curve through the park here as Mario drops back a bit off of Lyondike, perhaps setting up so he can run him down the long straightaway. They're making that turn onto the long start-finish straight now.
You really have to get a jump right there. You really have to get a run at this guy, and Mario didn't get it.